So parental burnout refers to a sense of overwhelming mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion from the demands of being a parent. So it's often associated for parents with these feelings of anxiety, stress, sometimes resentment and overwhelm, just from managing sort of the day-to-day responsibilities, which are enormous, of being a good parent. Parents also often report that they feel really guilty. So they feel this sense of deep shame around, I'm failing as a parent or I'm not a good enough parent. We know that parental burnout is associated with worse outcomes for both parents and kids. So for parents, we know that their mental and physical health declines when they're experiencing burnout. We also know that it makes it harder to parent. So when they're experiencing this sense of overwhelm and exhaustion, it makes it harder for them to engage in appropriate discipline. We also know, for example, that parents who are burnt out are more likely to engage in child maltreatment. On the other side, what we know is that when parents are doing better, so when their well-being is prioritized and they are less burnt out, we know that children then also do better. So their emotional and physical well-being increases and family functioning improves. On the other side, we know that improved parental well-being, so less burnout, is better for kids, better for parents, and also overall for families. So for example, we know that when parents' well-being is prioritized and they're doing better, we see lower rates in children of mental health difficulties. One thing I'll say is that it's really difficult for parents to engage in self-care. Parents put so much pressure on themselves to be really good parents. It's coming from such a loving and good place, but that also means that they can be highly self-critical. Parents are really good at saying, here are all the things I'm not doing, here are all the ways that I'm failing. But one thing I always say to parents is that if you're not taking care of yourself, you're also not modeling for your kids what it means to engage in healthy coping and how to manage stress. Right? So we always use this analogy from airplanes, right? That you have to put on your oxygen mask before helping your child. Because if you don't have anything to give, where are your kids going to draw from? So I really try to help parents unpack the guilt that comes along with prioritizing themselves and not sacrificing everything for their kids, even though of course it's coming from the best intentions. So a few things that parents can do is, one, try to prioritize self-care. And it doesn't have to be huge. Ideally, it would be a bigger part of your week, but I also recognize parents have so much that's going on. There's so many pressures on them. There's not enough time in the week or the day or even in an hour to take a moment. And are there little breaks that you could take in between in the day? So for example, are there 5, 10, even 15 or 20, if you're lucky, minutes that you could just get to yourself to take some slow, deep breaths, to listen to some music, to connect with a friend or a family member that feels good to you, if you're lucky, even engage in a hobby. But even taking that 15 or 20 minutes, which probably feels very difficult, is going to pay much larger dividends in terms of your own well-being, and then of course in terms of your family well-being. Related to that, think about your community, right? So who are the people that support you, and where can you get extra support if you need it? So for many people, that's their family, sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's community or cultural organizations or a certain type of religious faith. Where are the places where you get to refill your cup, especially when things feel so overwhelming and you just feel like you haven't got a lot more to give? How can you also rely on your community so you don't feel like you're doing it all? And for those of us that have the option, it can also help to think about who can share the load. So are there ways in which your children can engage in activities and with other adults where you can take a little bit of a break? Are there other people in your life, for example, who can help with some of the child rearing responsibilities? And even though it can be hard to ask for help, think of it as me asking for this help is really me asking for help for my family and for my kids, if that helps decrease your guilt. Another thing is to go back to this idea of healthy coping skills. We work so much with kids, and I know many of the parents out there are great at saying to your kids, what are you going to do when you're having a hard time? I want you to use a coping skill. If you're having a hard day, I want you to shift your mindset. I want you to engage in an activity that feels good for you. Parents, not so good at putting this lens on themselves. So saying, I want my kids to engage in these healthy coping skills. I want to boost their resilience. I want them to feel good about going out and tackling the challenges that they experience in their daily lives. I need to model that too. I need to show kids I can come home from a long day at work, I can be exhausted, and I can take 5 minutes for myself to just enjoy this cup of tea and not be on my phone, not be on my email, not be thinking about anything else if I don't have to. This helps your kids know too that it's okay to take those breaks for themselves when they're having a hard time. And then the last thing I'll say is that I always encourage parents, take a moment, even if you can, 30 seconds even every day, to pause and say, what did I do right today? What did I do well? What are the steps that I took forward to show my family that I love them and I care for them? Your minds are going all day long with all the things you're not doing. I didn't get to this. The to-do list is too long. I forgot to do this thing for my kid. My kid is mad at me about this. Those things are true, and you have to balance them with what are all the things that you're doing right, and then give yourself credit for those. Because again, parental well-being is essential to child well-being.